Human crafted a sanctuary from scrap for exiled alien princess Lira. Torrential acid rain hammered the corroded rooftops of the lower spires, sending rivulets of neon water snaking through the maze of abandoned tech. Cade moved like a shadow through the scrapyards, his patched-up jacket soaked but impervious, his boots silent on the slippery debris. The storm was a living thing, its thunderous pulse disguising his presence as he navigated between heaps of rusted servos and twisted steel. Most people cowered indoors when the sky turned toxic, but for Cade, storms like this were opportunity. Out here, beneath the relentless downpour, competition vanished. He prowled with purpose, eyes scanning for salvage. Anything useful? Anything left behind by those too fearful or too slow. A violet shimmer caught his attention, glimmering beneath a tangled mass of shattered drones. He knelt, fingers deft despite the stinging rain, and brushed aside the wires to reveal a power core, still humming faintly with stored energy. A find like this could mean warmth for a week, maybe more. Just as he reached for it, a faint rustle from behind a collapsed comms relay snapped him to full alert. He froze, heart thudding, every sense tuned to the shadows behind him. Slowly, he slid his hand to the worn grip of his stun blade. "This sector's mine. Back off," he called, his voice low and edged with warning. A soft gasp answered him, a sound too delicate, too frightened to be a scavenger's challenge. The rain intensified, drumming on the metal canopy overhead as Cade edged closer, narrowing his eyes to peer through the shifting curtains of water. He caught a fleeting glimpse, lavender skin marked with glowing geometric patterns, hunched in the darkness. Not human, not from Earth. The figure shrank back, clutching her side, silver eyes wide and wary beneath a waterfall of dark hair matted by the rain. Bioluminescent lines traced elegant shapes along her cheeks and shoulders, pulsing in the gloom. Even in her distress, there was something regal in the way she carried herself, her chin lifted and her gaze unwavering. Ornate gemstones, dull but unmistakably precious, hung at her throat and wrists, a stark contrast to her torn tunic and battered leggings. "I'm not here to steal," she said, her voice carrying a melodic accent that seemed to resonate in the air between them. "Just passing through." Overhead, the whine of patrol drones grew sharper, the glare of searchlights slicing through the storm. The authorities were relentless in this district, especially with anyone who looked other. Cade's gaze dropped to the wound at her side, a jagged tear, blood mingling with rainwater. "You're injured. Patrols are sweeping this grid," he murmured, stepping closer despite himself. She straightened as if drawing strength from some inner reserve, her back pressed against the heap of debris. Pride radiated from her, stubborn and bright even as she trembled. "I won't be captured," she said, voice resolute. The searchlights were moving closer now, sweeping the yard in steady, mechanical arcs. Cade's heart hammered in his chest. He hesitated, measuring the risk, then made his choice. "I know a place. Safe. But we have to go now." She hesitated, her eyes narrowing, searching his face for any hint of betrayal. "Why would you help me?" she demanded, suspicion sharp in her tone. "Because you need it," Cade replied simply, holding out his arm. "And because I can." She regarded him for a long heartbeat, then, with a shuddering breath, accepted. Her skin was feverish where it brushed his, the bioluminescent markings flaring at his touch, casting a faint halo on his weathered hand. "This way," he whispered, guiding her quickly through the labyrinthine paths of the scrapyard. They moved in tandem, Cade leading with practiced agility, the alien woman leaning on him as she fought to keep pace. The neon rain painted their faces in shifting colors, rendering them almost unrecognizable to the passing patrols. The storm was both enemy and ally, obscuring their flight and masking their footsteps. Twice, they ducked into shadowed alcoves as patrol drones passed overhead, beams slicing perilously close. Cade's arm tightened around her shoulders, steadying her as her knees threatened to buckle. She bit back a cry, her dignity unbroken, her eyes never leaving his. Finally, they reached the cargo stacks, a dense warren of rusted shipping crates piled 3 stories high. Cade guided her along a zigzagging route, past heaps of obsolete solar panels and dormant service bots, until they stopped before a faded blue container. He pressed his code chip to the lock, and with a soft click, the door slid aside. Inside, the container was sparse but meticulously organized. Neatly sorted circuits, coils of wire, and stacks of battered tools lined the walls. A battered cot sat in the corner, beside a small crate converted into a table. It wasn't much, but it was dry, and above all, hidden. She collapsed onto the cot, exhaustion finally overtaking her defenses. The rainwater on her skin shimmered, the bioluminescent lines now dim with fatigue. "You're either a fool or a rare soul," she managed, voice softer now. "Just a technician," Cade replied, crouching to rummage through a battered medkit. "Down here, survival means helping each other. Besides, I could use a fresh perspective on my security mods." That almost drew a smile from her. "You want me to test your defenses?" "Among other things," he said, glancing up with a faint grin. "Let's see to that wound first." She studied him, suspicion fading, replaced by a flicker of trust. "You're serious?" "I am." Their eyes met, and the space between them seemed to shrink, the storm outside now muffled by thick steel walls. He knelt by her side, carefully cleaning her wound, his hand steady despite the tension still coiling in his chest. "I'm Cade," he offered quietly. She hesitated, then spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lira." As he worked, the first fragile threads of trust were spun between them, each touch and word weaving a tenuous alliance. Outside, the acid rain continued its relentless assault, beating a steady, protective rhythm beyond their fragile haven. Dr. Harlow, a grizzled medic with a reputation for discretion, arrived under cover of darkness. The woman's silhouette moved through the maze of containers with the assurance of someone who'd learned long ago to be invisible. Her coat was weathered, pockets heavy with vials and scanners, her hair streaked iron gray, face lined by years of secrets kept and debts repaid. She barely glanced at Cade as he let her in, her focus drawn immediately to the cot where Lira lay. Harlow snapped open a worn med case, hands steady as she pulled out a scanner and ran it over Lira's side. "Plasma burn, all right," she muttered, peering at the display. "Not deep, but her kind needs specialized care. Their biology's unique, heals fast, but draws attention." Her eyes flicked up to Lyra's face, pausing on the bioluminescent lines that shimmered in agitated pulses across her skin. Lira winced, the glow of her markings flickering with discomfort. She tried to school her expression, but pain etched tension into her features. "I can usually control the glow. The pain makes it harder." Harlow's fingers were gentle as she applied a gel, a faint hiss rising as it met the wound. "You need warmth," Harlow said, voice brusque but not unkind. "Keep her above 21 degrees or the treatment won't take." She glanced at Cade. "Don't let her get chilled, and keep her calm if you can." Cade nodded, committing the instructions to memory. Harlow finished her work in silence, packing up her kit with efficient movements. She glanced once more at Lira, then at Cade, her eyes sharp as a scalpel. "Keep her out of sight. Patrols are ramping up. If anyone asks, you never saw me?" Without waiting for a reply, she slipped out into the rain-soaked darkness, boots silent on the metal floor. After Harlow left, the container felt both emptier and more intimate. The storm's muffled drumbeat outside had faded to a distant rhythm. Cade moved through the sparse space, rummaging through bins and crates, the scrape of metal and plastic filling the silence. Lyra lay softly aglow on the cot, her silver eyes watching him with wary curiosity. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice softer than before, the melodic cadence gentled by exhaustion. "Making this place less of a dump," Cade replied, prying the lid off a storage case. He pulled out a coiled thermal pad, battered but functional, and began threading it through the framework beneath the cot. "You'll need a real bed soon." He knelt, fingers deft as he spliced a power lead from a scavenged battery. "This should keep you comfortable." A blue glow hummed beneath the fabric as he switched it on. Warmth seeped into the air, already shifting the chill that clung to the steel walls. "You're oddly prepared for someone down here," Lyra observed, eyes tracing the organized chaos of his workshop. Wires, tools, and circuit boards were arranged in clusters that only someone with a technician's eye could appreciate. Cade flashed a grin, a quick spark of humor. "Best tech salvager in Districts 3 to 7, or so I claim. My family built shelters topside, until the purges. They believed everyone deserved safety. The city disagreed." His voice hardened, but he didn't look away. "Now I build what I can, for those who need it." For a moment, Lyra studied him in silence, as if weighing the story against the man before her. She shifted, wincing, and tried to sit up. "I know a bit about environmental systems," she offered, pride flickering in her tone despite the pain. "Not with that wound," Cade said, moving quickly to her side. He passed her a control tablet, screen glowing softly with system schematics. "But you can help me calibrate the air and humidity." Lyra's fingers trembled at first, but she steadied herself, scanning the readouts. "Your filters are outdated. And your humidity balancer's set too low for my species' comfort." She tapped a few commands, glancing at Cade for confirmation. He nodded, moving to a battered console mounted on the wall. "Show me what you'd change." The two of them fell into a rhythm, Cade adjusting hardware, Lyra guiding the settings, each word and gesture smoothing the rough edge of distrust. Through the long hours of night, the container transformed. Cade tore open vents and replaced filters with scavenged mesh, Lyra explaining the optimal moisture ratios for her physiology. He spliced together a humidity balancer from parts of an old drone and an abandoned irrigation pump, soldering wires with practiced speed while Lyra adjusted the output from the tablet. Subtle lighting replaced the harsh glare of work lamps, the new fixtures diffusing a gentle radiance that played across Lyra's bioluminescent markings. She relaxed, tension fading as the air shifted, warmer, softer, more alive. Occasionally, their hands brushed as they passed tools or adjusted settings, the contact sparking faint flares of color along her skin. Cade worked quietly, but Lyra's presence drew stories from him as naturally as breathing. "My mother was the real engineer," he confided as he connected the last wire. "Could build a water purifier out of scrap and a wish. She always said people were like circuitry. Get the connections right and things just work. Lose one wire and the whole system shorts." Lyra smiled, the expression tentative but genuine. "My father said something similar. On my world, we use biofibers. Lose a strand, the pattern unravels. But repair it, and the whole becomes stronger." They shared a look, brief and electric, before turning back to their work. By sunrise, the transformation was complete. Cade stood back and surveyed the result with a craftsman's pride. The air inside the container was warm and faintly humid, the chill banished. He had fashioned a private sleeping alcove in the corner, using scavenged memory foam, compressed and shaped with the careful hands of someone who knew comfort was rare currency. Above the alcove, soft light played across the ceiling, echoing the glow of Lyra's markings. "Rest," Cade urged, helping her settle into the alcove, arranging the thermal pad so it cradled her wounded side. "You need it. I have to meet my supplier for more parts. Lira hesitated, then looked up at him, the gentle play of her markings illuminating her features. Thank you, she whispered, for making this feel safe. Cade paused at the threshold, one hand on the door. For a moment, he watched her, the soft glow of her presence painting shifting shadows on the steel walls. Get some sleep, he said, voice low but sure. Tomorrow, we reinforce security. Something tells me we'll need it. He stepped out into the waking city, the air sharp with the scent of ozone and promise. Behind him, Lyra's luminous presence lingered in his mind, a warmth unlike anything he'd ever felt, a fragile hope in a world that had forgotten such things. Cade had built many shelters over the years, for all manner of lost souls, but this one felt different, important in a way he couldn't yet name. Days passed. Their hideout became a true home, with hybrid water filters and climate controls. The metallic tang that once hung in the air was replaced by the clean, faintly sweet scent of filtered moisture. Condensation no longer beaded on the steel walls, and the memory foam alcove was layered with a scavenged quilt, the fabric patched but soft beneath Lyra's luminous form. The battered shipping container felt less like a refuge and more like a promise, one shaped by careful hands and silent shared effort. Lyra healed swiftly. The wound on her side faded to a faint line, hidden beneath the glowing patterns that now pulsed more brightly with every movement. She moved through the container with greater ease, her steps light, her voice regaining its melodic strength. Cade watched her from across the workbench, unable to ignore how the play of light traced her features, or how her laughter, rare but growing more frequent, seemed to vibrate in the warm air. They worked in tandem, the boundaries between guest and host dissolving. Lyra understood the hybrid systems better than he'd expected. She navigated the intricacies of his makeshift control panels with deft fingers, her mind adapting to his cobbled-together tech. Cade had never trusted anyone else with his tools, but he found himself handing over components, letting her take the lead, and marveling at the results. "Hand me the microspanner," Cade called from beneath the main water valve, his voice muffled by a tangle of pipes. His hands were slick with condensation, the tools scattered around him in a familiar chaos. Lyra moved closer, kneeling beside him. Her skin shimmered in the low light, bioluminescent patterns reflecting off the chrome and glass. She picked up the requested tool and extended it, her fingers brushing his. The contact lingered, a fleeting warmth that sent a ripple through both of them. Cade stilled, acutely aware of her nearness. Her scent, subtle and foreign, reminded him of rain on unfamiliar flowers. He swallowed, busying himself with the valve, though his hands were less steady than before. "Atmosphere's perfect now," Lyra reported, glancing at the console. "You adapted the system well." She adjusted a control and a soft hum filled the space, the water's flow shifting into a gentle, musical rhythm. "Still not sure how you did it," Cade admitted, twisting the spanner with more force than necessary. "Your tech is different." She smiled, her silver eyes catching the light. "We harmonize with systems, not force them," she explained, reaching past him to fine-tune the regulator. With a subtle adjustment, the pipes vibrated, sending a series of resonant notes through the air, a living symphony of water and metal. Cade stared, transfixed. "That's better than I could manage." Lyra laughed, the sound low and resonant, her gaze lingering on him. "Most things work best in harmony," she replied. "You fight the tech. I listen to it." He grinned, though his heart pounded. "Maybe I need better ears." She looked up at him through her lashes, her patterns glowing brighter. "Or a better teacher." Before he could respond, a warning light flickered overhead. The soft blue pulse snapped to crimson, a security scan, threading the district with invisible beams. Tension rippled through the space, the fragile peace suddenly threatened by the outside world. Cade's expression hardened. He slid out from under the valve, wiping his hands on a rag. "Let's test the cloaking," he said, moving quickly to the wall panel. He flicked open a compartment, revealing a snarl of wires and circuit boards. Lyra's markings dimmed in disappointment, but she followed him. Together, they worked to refine the container's camouflage. Cade adjusted the energy dampeners and heat diffusers, while Lira tuned the bioluminescent field, blending her own patterns into the background signature. The room seemed to breathe in unison with their efforts, the boundaries between human and alien blurring with every adjustment. "Your modifications are seamless," Lira murmured, fingers skimming across the sensor array. "You've merged our tech beautifully." Cade glanced up, meeting her gaze. "Most wouldn't bother. Maybe they didn't see the possibilities," she replied, her voice soft as silk. He took a step closer, caught in the shimmer of her delight. Her patterns danced across her skin, the luminescence painting intricate shapes on the walls. Without thinking, she reached up, her fingertips tracing his jaw. The touch sent a tingling current through him, electric and achingly gentle. The air between them grew charged, their breaths mingling in the close warmth of the transformed space. Cade's hand rose, hesitating at her shoulder. Unspoken longing crackled between them, filling the silence with promise. Suddenly, a heavy knock shattered the moment, echoing through the container's thin walls. Cade jerked away, pulse racing. Outside, Milo's voice called, impatient, strained. Lyra's hand dropped, her glow retreating. "Your friend seems upset," she observed, tone reluctant but composed. "Stay here," Cade said, checking his weapon as he moved to the door. He glanced back, already missing her touch. "Don't answer, unless it's me." She nodded, her eyes following him with a mixture of worry and trust. As Cade slipped out, Lyra retreated to the alcove, wrapping herself in the quilt, her bioluminescence dimming to a gentle halo. Outside, Milo waited in the shadow of the containers, shifting anxiously from foot to foot. He was younger than Cade, wiry and nervous, his face pale in the weak daylight. He thrust a battered satchel at Cade, voice low and urgent. "You're pushing it, Cade. Patrols have doubled. Word is, they're looking for something. Someone different. You hear anything? You let me know. No risks." Cade took the satchel, forcing himself to focus. "I know what I'm doing, Milo. I just need the parts." "Yeah, well, keep your head down. You're not the only one watching the stacks." Milo lingered, glancing at the container, suspicion flickering in his gaze. Cade stepped in his path, blocking the line of sight. "I'll handle it. Thanks for the delivery." Milo gave a final wary look, then disappeared into the maze, boots splashing through puddles left by the last acid rain. Cade waited until the echoes faded before slipping back inside. The space felt warmer, more alive. Lyra looked up as he entered, relief softening her features. "Everything all right?" she asked. "For now," Cade replied, setting the satchel on the workbench. He glanced at the systems, camouflage holding, heat and energy signatures perfectly masked. He crossed to Lira, his heart still racing from her touch and the near exposure. The moment had shifted something between them, something delicate but irrevocable. Even as Cade sorted through the new supplies, his thoughts kept circling back to Lira, the gentle glow of her markings, the way her presence had changed the air, the home they were building together. Piece by careful piece. Anomalies in the power grid caught Cade's attention during morning checks. He sat hunched over his battered terminal, the faint glow of the screen illuminating the stubble on his jaw, eyes narrowed in concentration as lines of code flickered past. Energy readings pulsed in erratic intervals, small but unmistakable deviations from the daily norm. "Someone's probing us," he muttered, fingers dancing over keys as he pulled up the diagnostic logs, overlaying the night's activity with a fresh data trace. Lira joined him, drawn by the tense edge in his voice. Her bioluminescent markings pulsed in jagged rhythms across her arms and throat, silver irises wide with alarm. She leaned over his shoulder, her proximity sending a subtle current through the air. "That's a variant of my people's detection tech, modified," she whispered, eyes scanning the unfamiliar signatures. Her patterns flickered with fear, their soft light swelling and receding in sync with her quickening breath. Cade reached for her hand instinctively, squeezing gently, feeling the heat and tension in her skin. "They won't find us," he promised, though his jaw clenched around the words. Lyra didn't let go. Her fingers entwined with his, grounding both of them. "It's not just the systems, Cade," she said quietly, searching his eyes. "There's something you should know." The console pulsed with a shrill, urgent ping, Milo's emergency code, triple flashed and unmissable. Cade's heart lurched as he flicked the comms on. Milo's voice crackled through, rushed and breathless. "Full lockdown. Search teams everywhere. They're after something specific." Cade brought up the security feeds. Grainy footage from the yard's old cams showed armored squads sweeping the stacks, 12 in total, each one bristling with hybrid weaponry, helmets glinting with unfamiliar symbols. Their gear blended government-grade body armor with the sleek, iridescent plating of alien tech. "These aren't regular patrols," Cade observed, jaw tightening. He toggled through the comms chatter, catching snippets. "Target carrying stolen intelligence, authorized to shoot on sight." Lyra's markings blazed with panic, her whole body lit with a ghostly pallor that painted the walls in shifting patterns. "What kind of intelligence?" Cade pressed, his voice suddenly sharp. Lyra hesitated, her fear raw and unguarded. "Proof," she admitted at last, voice trembling, "of trafficking. Experiments. Systematic abuse. Not just refugees. Something bigger. The government's been running operations against my people for years. The files I carry expose everything. Names, locations, collaborators on both sides." The feeds flickered as the search teams closed in, boots crunching on gravel, weapons drawn. Cade's blood pounded in his ears. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lyra turned away, hands gripping the edge of the workbench, her silhouette outlined by the storm's early light. "Because I didn't want you in danger. I couldn't risk you," she confessed, the words barely more than a whisper. The space between them buzzed with equal parts fear and longing. Cade stepped closer, catching her hand again, desperate to anchor her. And himself. "You trusted me with your life. Let me help you finish this." She looked at him, tears gleaming at the corners of her eyes, markings fluttering with hope and dread. "We won't get another chance if they breach the shield. Their scanners will isolate my biopattern and trace the files to me." Cade's mind raced, every instinct sharpened by adrenaline. "The water system, the harmonics. We can mask your data signature with the right interference." Lyra blinked, understanding dawning. "If we blend my energy field with the resonance from the pipes, the system might register only background noise, but we'll have to synchronize perfectly." Cade moved quickly, fingers flying over the controls. "Show me how to tune it," he said. "We have maybe minutes." They worked as one, their movements seamless and urgent. Lyra knelt by the main valve, guiding Cade as he modulated the thermal pads and frequency dampeners. She adjusted the bioluminescent field, sending ripples of coded energy through the container's frame. Cade reprogrammed the hybrid sensors, layering in his own algorithms to scramble the incoming scans. Outside, the patrols fanned out, their scanners humming as they swept through the stacks. Cade's hands shook with the strain, sweat beading on his brow, but Lyra's steady presence beside him kept panic at bay. Their breathing fell into rhythm, matched by the rising hum of the harmonics as the water system began to sing, a low, complex chord that vibrated through every surface. "Hold it steady," Lyra urged, her fingers skimming over his to adjust the tuning. The markings on her skin glowed brighter, then faded, sinking into the background until only a faint pulse remained. On the feed, the search teams paused at their container. A squad leader barked orders, waving a scanner along the seams. The readout flashed green. No anomaly detected. "Sector clear, moving on," the voice crackled, rough and disappointed. Cade exhaled, lungs burning as the danger receded. He only then realized he was still holding Lyra's hand, their fingers tightly intertwined. The silence that fell was heavy with relief, exhaustion, and everything they'd left unsaid. He turned to her, searching her face. "We do this together. We reveal the truth." No more hiding. Lyra's silver eyes shone with gratitude and something deeper. She reached up, her hand trembling as it brushed his cheek, then drew him close. Her lips met his in a fierce, trembling kiss, energy sparking between them, her markings flaring with hope and the promise of something new. The world outside might have been burning, but inside their fragile haven, they were united, two against the darkness. "Together," she whispered, forehead pressed to his, her breath warm and steady. The hum of their makeshift sanctuary faded into quiet, but the spark between them only grew brighter, a promise that the fight and their bond was just beginning. Cade sifted through the holographic files projected from Lyra's wrist, the images flickering and ghost-like in the filtered light. Evidence scrolled past in fractured panes, grim corridors, sterile operating theaters spattered with blood, technicians in armored suits, hunched over terrified figures strapped to cold tables, illegal labs, forced modifications, prison cells so small Cade could feel the claustrophobia in his bones. One hollow showed a row of children, skin aglow with bioluminescence, eyes wide with terror as machines harvested energy from their bodies. "They used your people to create new tech," Cade said, voice low and shaking with anger. His hands curled into fists as he flicked through another file, schematics overlaying a medical scan, organs labeled with alien glyphs and numbers. "Yes, many suffered. Some never escaped," Lyra replied. She sat close beside him, knees drawn to her chest, the soft, sorrowful flicker of her markings painting the steel walls with pale blue light. Every fresh revelation seemed to drain her further, the grief etched into her posture. Cade looked at her, his own pain mirrored in her silver eyes. "You risked everything to get this?" Lyra nodded, her gaze never leaving the images. "Someone had to. I couldn't let it go on." Her voice trembled, but there was steel beneath the sorrow. She reached for him, cupping his face with both hands, grounding him in the present. The warmth of her touch steadied the rage boiling inside him. "They'll keep hunting you," Cade warned, his voice gentler now. He reached up to cover her hand with his, thumb stroking along the delicate lines of bioluminescent skin. "We can't hide forever." Lyra's answer was quiet, but unwavering. "Then we fight back. Turn this place into a command post. We make them afraid." She straightened, resolve flickering in every pulse of her patterns. Cade felt something settle in his chest. Not fear, but a bracing certainty. He turned to the battered terminal, fingers moving fast as he compiled a list of allies. "We'll need help. Old contacts, human and alien. I know a few who can keep quiet, and a few more who owe me favors." Lyra watched him, eyes brightening with each new name added to the list. "You trust them?" "I trust some with my life," Cade said. "Others, just enough." "We'll need upgrades. Milo can get us shielding, maybe even a mobile dampener if he's in a good mood. I know a coder who owes me a few nights of sleep. She's got skills with encryption. Could get this evidence into every system in the city. Before he could continue, Lira stopped him with another kiss. Her lips pressed to his, energy crackling between them, the current of her hope and determination passing through his body like a living spark. He tasted the desperation, the gratitude, the fierce longing that had built between them. She pulled back, her breath brushing his cheek. "You're remarkable," she murmured. Most would have turned away. Cade gave a crooked smile, his hand still tangled with hers. Most never had the chance to build something like this. His voice was rough with feeling, the truth of it hanging in the air between them. An alarm blared, sharp, insistent. A red icon flashed across the terminal, accompanied by a staccato burst of static from the security feeds. Cade spun the display, revealing thermal signatures moving through the outer stacks. Heavy boots splashed through puddles, gun barrels catching the low light. Multiple hostiles approaching, the system warned in an artificial monotone. "They're closing in," Lira said, already on her feet. Her bioluminescent patterns flared in urgency, painting warlike streaks across her cheeks. Cade stood beside her, squeezing her hand, refusing to let go. "We work faster," he said, voice steady. "Let's show them what we've built." They moved as one. Lira ducked to the environmental controls, rerouting coolant to mask their heat signature, hands flying over the interface as she layered alien encryption on top of Cade's own mods. Cade powered up the defensive grid, patching together a shield generator from scavenged drone parts and the backup battery Milo had delivered last week. "Activate the harmonics," Lira called. Cade flipped the switch, and the whole container vibrated with a subsonic hum, harmonizing with her bioluminescent energy. He watched as she pressed her palm to the central column, her markings pulsing in time with the shield's frequency. Outside, the squad spread out, scanners waving in precise arcs. "Thermal anomaly detected," a voice barked over the feed. "Redirecting vent heat now," Lira replied, voice tense but in control. The panel glowed as she rerouted the exhaust, sending ghost images of movement along the outer walls. Cade patched into the comms, sending out coded pings to his contacts. "Going dark," he transmitted. "If you're with us, reply on channel 17. One by one, green lights winked to life. A medic in the market district, a pair of alien engineers from the northern Habs, even an old scavenger who'd once saved Cade from a city riot. "We're not alone," he said, meeting Lyra's eyes. She gave a fierce smile, her energy a beacon in the gloom. "They'll regret pushing us this far." The searchers hammered on the outer bulkhead. Cade and Lira exchanged a look, a silent promise. He handed her a stun blade, fingers lingering at her wrist. "If they break through, we stick to the plan." She nodded, her resolve shining in her silver gaze. "We reveal the truth, no matter what." A new alarm blared. Breach imminent. The container's lights dimmed, power rerouted to the shield. The sound of metal grinding on metal filled the air as the enemy tried to cut through. Cade drew her close, pressing his forehead to hers, their breaths mingling. "Whatever happens, I'm with you. Together," she whispered, squeezing his hand once more. They took their positions, Lira at the core, channeling her energy into the harmonics, Cade at the barricade, pulse racing but determined. The sanctuary they had built, the love and hope woven into every wire and wall, now became a beacon and a target for change. Outside, the storm raged. Inside, they waited, ready to face whatever came next. The assault began at sunrise. Sirens screamed through the lower spires, the shrill wail weaving with the rising wind and the metallic clang of boots on steel. From the vantage of their fortified container, Cade and Lira watched the city's shadows twist and flicker as government operatives and mercenary squads fanned out, their hybrid weapons gleaming cold and deadly in the early light. Lira stood at the heart of their home-turned fortress, her bioluminescent markings flaring with every surge of adrenaline. She tracked enemy signatures on the security feeds, her posture regal and unyielding. 12 attackers, using breach tech, she reported, voice calm despite the chaos swelling around them. She tapped a series of glyphs into the console, her touch leaving afterimages of shimmering blue. Cade's fingers moved quickly over the defense board. Their sanctuary braced itself, every system humming in anticipation. He flipped the switch for countermeasures, and the container's surface rippled, shrouding itself in adaptive camouflage, colors and shapes blending with the scrapyard beyond. Explosions slammed against the outer hull, rattling shelves and sending dust spiraling from the ceiling. Emergency circuits flared, power rerouted in a dance of survival. Cade checked the shield readout. Shield's at 75%, he called. They're using alien plasma, probably black market. The telltale blue fire licked at the view screens, far more dangerous than anything standard issue. Another blast shook the walls, the impact setting every system screaming for attention. On the surveillance screens, attackers in composite armor advanced with ruthless precision, deploying drills and energy lances to force a way in. Earth tech clashed with the hybrid defenses Cade and Lira had woven together in desperate nights of trial and error. Let's show them something new, Cade growled, eyes flashing as he initiated the nanite defense protocol. A swarm of silvery specks surged from hidden vents, invisible to the naked eye but deadly to circuitry. The enemy's gear shorted out in spectacular bursts. Rifles fizzled, visors blinked dark, tactical drones spun out of control and crashed to the ground. The tide of the assault wavered, but the enemy pressed on. A breach finally tore open near the base of the container, the scream of superheated metal echoing inside their makeshift command post. Cade caught Lyra's hand and pulled her into the reinforced core, the innermost sanctum layered in scavenged armor and resonance shielding. Containment's holding, Lyra breathed, voice tight as she pressed a palm to the interface, sending pulses of energy into the trembling walls. But not for long. Cade wrapped an arm around her, adrenaline pulsing in his veins. They'll have to get through us, he said, his voice hoarse but certain. Every system here is ours, built together. No one's breaking it apart. Their defenses adapted on the fly, algorithms weaving new countermeasures as fast as the enemy could shift tactics. The breach sealed itself, nanites fusing metal into seamless armor. It was a testament to their partnership, each system an echo of their shared ingenuity. Lira met Cade's gaze, her markings fierce and unyielding. If they take me, he silenced her with a kiss, raw fear and determination mingling between them. Her lips were fire, her touch grounding him to the moment. They won't, he promised against her skin. This is worth fighting for. Another explosion rocked their sanctuary. They held each other, braced as the world outside threatened to splinter their haven. When they parted, Lyra's patterns burned with fresh resolve, lines of light dancing along her cheekbones. North team's retreating. Their tech can't match our shields, she reported, scanning the feeds. One by one, red indicators blinked to yellow, then green, as enemy operatives withdrew in confusion. Let's finish this, Cade replied, a fierce smile breaking through the strain. Together, they directed the final phase of their defense. Lira recalibrated the harmonic generators, pulsing disruptive signals that sent attackers stumbling in disarray. Cade rerouted auxiliary power to the outer wall, triggering magnetic locks that sealed the last possible entry points. Enemy squads, outmaneuvered and demoralized, began to fall back, dragging damaged equipment and wounded pride in their wake. As morning fully broke, the assault faded into uneasy silence. The city's first rays of sunlight cut through the acid mist, illuminating the battered but standing structure that had become a beacon in the chaos. Smoke drifted from spent plasma charges, and the ground was littered with the wreckage of hybrid tech. Twisted rifles, fried comms, shattered drones. Inside, Cade sagged against the wall, sweat beading on his brow. Lira checked the systems, confirming that their home still pulsed with energy. The sanctuary had survived, battered but whole, its scars now symbols of their defiance. Word spread through the lower spires before the city's haze could clear. Neighbors ventured from their hiding places, whispers of victory passing from lip to lip. Their hybrid technology, proven in battle, became the foundation for something new. Cade and Lira shared their designs, modular shields, adaptive climate control, the harmonics that blurred the line between safety and sanctuary. Refugees began to arrive, families carrying what little they had, faces drawn with fatigue but bright with cautious hope. They were drawn by the promise of safety, by rumors of a place where no one was turned away, and where human and alien ingenuity flourished together. In the weeks that followed, the city's first joint housing initiative launched. The blueprints Cade and Lira had refined in the crucible of survival became the backbone of new shelters. Engineers, medics, and laborers, human and alien alike, worked side by side, forging a network of havens across the lower spires. Cade and Lira stood at the threshold of their home as dusk settled, the sky painted in streaks of violet and gold. Beyond their door, the city's lights mingled, soft yellow bulbs and drifting threads of alien bioluminescence, glowing in every color of hope. Their hands entwined, energy sparking in the quiet. Cade glanced at Lira, a gentle smile curving his lips. "This will always be home," she murmured, voice hushed with awe and contentment. "But maybe we can help others build their own." As another family approached, a mother with 3 children, their faces marked by fatigue and wonder, Cade stepped forward to greet them, his welcome open and genuine. "Welcome to Haven," he said, ushering them inside. Within those walls, surrounded by their inventions and the trust they'd built, Cade and Lira understood what they had created. Not just a shelter, not just a victory, but the first flicker of unity in a fractured world. Together, hand in hand, they faced the dawn, knowing they had changed not only their own lives, but the future of 2 worlds, one act of courage at a time. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.